It's 20 minutes past 7. The film Oppenheimer, it was a smash hit at the box office. It took audiences through America's race, the United States race, to build an atomic bomb during the Second World War.
A few years later, Britain also joined that race, sending thousands of servicemen to help with its nuclear testing programme. This was in the South Pacific. Our reporter, Nicola Haisler, has met with a veteran who's been talking about his nuclear experience for the first time at the age of 87.
A few months later, off Christmas Island came a still more spectacular demonstration of military power, Britain's first hydrogen bomb.
Among those British servicemen told to simply turn their backs away from the nuclear explosion is 21-year-old Brian Candle. Sent to Christmas Island to carry out his national service, Brian was one of the thousands of young men who witnessed British nuclear bomb tests.
I don't know if we can be trusted with such a weapon.
In the years after Robert Oppenheimer produced the first atomic bomb.
I can't ever remember being told officially what we were there for. Probably a good thing we didn't know about it, probably.
What was it like when you got to Christmas Island?
We arrived at the dead of night and looked overboard, and all the sharks were all around the boat, which was quite enlightening.
What was going on those days when everyone on the island knew there was going to be a bomb explosion?
We all got together and we sat with our backs to where the bomb was going to be let off. It was just an enormous explosion, yeah.
And were you given any protection or any, told?
No, we just had a basic overall on, yes.
After years of campaigning, the nuclear test veterans have recently been awarded a medal in recognition of the part they played. Many of them have already died.
Well, we were guinea pigs. We were just told what to do and did it, yeah. It was part of life, really, and I'm lucky because I'm healthy.
Nicola Haisler, BBC News.
So we're finishing there on those pictures of the medals. We're joined by John Morris here in studio, who is also a nuclear test veteran. Morning to you,
Morning.
John.
Morning.
John's granddaughter, Laura, is a campaigner for nuclear veterans as well. You're both very welcome this morning. John, can you I was asking you the moment you sat down, the medal that is here on your jacket, very proudly worn now. Can you explain what that medal is, the story behind you getting that medal, just in terms of when it arrived and what that is?
Yeah, the medal represents the British government going into the nuclear power game. And I was a conscript, national service in 1956. I was present for 4 atomic bombs. I was on Christmas Island for 16 months. And the medal represents our involvement in making Britain a nuclear power.
You had waited, John, a very long time for that medal to arrive.
It took 63 years of campaigning constantly. And if I can, I'd like to say to Boris Johnson, if he happens to watch this, thanks a million, because you made this happen. I met Boris in Downing Street and we had quite a frank talk, and he delivered before he left office. I know that Rishi Sunak made the presentation that we were getting a medal, but it was, in all honesty, it was Boris that delivered. But that was under a great deal of pressure from a lot of veterans. Unfortunately, the British government or the MOD, even to this day, I believe, do not think we are worthy of a medal. I received this medal, and this will give you some idea, or your listeners some idea. This medal was delivered by the postman after what I did, and so many veterans and the best they could do was post it. Thanks a million, MOD.
It's an insult in your
total
eyes.
insult. Not just to me, but to... There were 23,000 of us. There are about 1,800 left. And we fought tooth and nail to get this medal. I'm sure the MOD want us all to die and then it will be forgotten. Unfortunately, we won't.
Laura, you know the impact this has had on your family, and you've picked up the mantle. Not that I think John needs any help in kind of voicing the issues. You've seen the impact it's had on your family. What has that been?
I think we always class ourselves as one of the lucky families, to be honest. And that's despite the fact my grandpa's had cancer, pernicious anaemia, he lost a son at 4 months old. And actually, you know, the veterans and the families have been plagued with health issues, cancers, high rates of miscarriage, high rates of infant mortality, child deformities, etc. So we really do feel that we're one of the lucky ones. And I think, you know, part of the issue that the nuclear community has had for years is just this sense of cover-up for so long, and it's a sort of dirty secret that has sort of never had its moment, and the veterans aren't getting the recognition that they should have. The medal was always the start of that, and there's so many other elements to the campaign.
It's almost there are two sides to this. I'm just looking at the government statement, which says we are grateful to all service personnel who participated in the British nuclear testing programme and contributed to keeping our nation secure. We're pleased they'll now be receiving a medal in recognition of this. That's the medal side. And then there's the side that perhaps it doesn't align as well with the campaign, which is 4 independent studies of 20,000 nuclear test veterans have shown cancer and mortality rates aligned with a control group of age and gender-matched forces personnel and show to be lower than societal averages. Nuclear test veterans who believe they've suffered ill health due to service have the right to apply for no-fault compensation under the War Pension Scheme, and the MOD has said independent studies show no evidence to suggest those involved have suffered. Which is in complete contrast.
Can I can
saying.
counter, because if you carried on in the report, it also says that nuclear veterans were more likely to have cancer, and they were 300% more likely to have ill health. What they did, and the very important word in that statement you've come out with,
Where's the
is
government statement?
Controlled. It was controlled. It was controlled in such a way that it would show, in my opinion, the MOD are not at fault. And that, if you think back to the post office, they're never at fault. They are negligent. The Prime Minister at the time, Attlee, wrote a letter, and it's documented, you can see it, it's in open domain, that we were subject to an experiment. And his words were, we need to test men, equipment and material against a nuclear explosion.
John,
that was in 1956.
Can I ask you, we were just showing some of the archive picture of the testing.
Yeah.
Now, I know this is a story you've told to many people, but can you just describe exactly where you were when you watched firsthand at a distance? You're something like, is it 20 miles away when this happened? So just take us through where you were, what that moment in time.
That moment in time, what your viewers need to understand, I was 18, going on 19. I had no idea I was going to be used for an atomic experiment. We were ordered to sit on the beach with a T-shirt, a pair of shorts and sunglasses on.
Was it like this outfit you were... Right,
yeah,
OK.
But I had a shirt on and sunglasses. We put our hands over our eyes. Before we did that, we actually saw the plane doing its figure of 8 before it dropped the bomb. And then we were told to turn round and sit down and put our hands over our eyes, and trying to describe that moment, it's almost impossible. I often wonder if I exaggerate. I'll come into the Oppenheimer film, of which I saw a few months ago. But I sat there I had my hands over my eyes, and people must have heard this story time and time again. I saw right through my hands. It was daylight, and that was the whiteness of the bomb. I'm totally terrified, to be honest. I'd never in my whole life experienced anything like it. And then the heat came. And I've often used this as a yardstick. If ever you've done some cooking in the oven and you've opened the door on you've gone, God, I'll tell you what, I felt that day my body was boiling. It was one of them where I went, God, it was so hot, very, very difficult to evaluate that pain. And when I looked, we were then allowed to sort of open our eyes. The palm trees that had been facing the bomb were scorched. That will give you some idea. I was 20 miles away. People have said it was like sitting 20 miles from the centre of the sun with a shirt on. Would anybody in the right mind do that? And I was ordered. That's the galling thing. I'm convinced the MOD knew exactly what they were putting us through. And this is an important fact. Almost everybody was under 30. Almost everybody was single and with basically no next of kin.
John, thank you for telling that story, because every time people will stop in their tracks. Laura, you know that full well. I'm just curious, as a granddaughter, this film that is now out that so many people will watch and they'll think maybe in a different way about your granddad's real-life experience. Are you sensing that is happening? Think attention is being drawn?
I think so, yeah. There's certainly more awareness of sort of the whole atomic weapon piece. Obviously, things that are going on in the world in Ukraine and things, that deterrent that was created by these men so many years ago is coming to fruition, really, in today's age. And also things like Hillsborough, the post office scandal. There's a whole understanding, I think, now of that idea of injustice and government cover-up. And I think that the next stage of the campaign for us is to really highlight the fact that there are various elements of evidence that are being held back. So to your point, Naga, that, you know, the government will say that research has been done that's been fair and equitable. And the reality is that it's not. It's done on very, very controlled groups. And people like my grandpa went to Christmas Island and had blood tests done, medical tests done, and we request their medical records and they're nowhere to be seen. And so what we're trying to say is you can go through the pensions process, you can go through all the research processes, but if that information is not full and accurate, there's absolutely no hope for these men to either get the right health support that they need, their families to get the right health support that they need. And that's why we've launched a crowdfunder. If you Google Nuclear Test Veterans Crowdfunder, we're launching a campaign with McHugh Jury and partners to try and take the MOD to court, to get the release of those records and that information in order to allow these veterans to be able to get proper access to that information.
Laura, thank you so much for coming in. John, thank you as well.
It's good to see you again.
I'm very pleased that you have the medal. The method of its delivery, I understand the emotions that brings out, but we appreciate you telling your story.
Yeah,
thank you.
So much.
I'm very pleased that you've given me the opportunity, and I sincerely hope nobody thinks about throwing a bomb about, because it'll be devastating for the world.
Wise words.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.